Welcome back to The Short Game, a show about short video games, games that respect your time. Your time. I'm Reagan Kelly, and I am joined this week by my very cool co-host,
Shane Kelly.
And we are here this week for the exciting occasion of talking about a new game by Brendan Chung, aka Blendo Games. We've only ever gotten to do this on the show twice before. It's been 7 years since Quadrilateral Cowboy came out, a game that I deeply loved, and my co-hosts mostly didn't, if I recall correctly. But this one,
I'm not even sure if I was on the episode for Quadrilateral Cowboy. I've kind of forgotten. I think not.
I didn't go back and listen to that one again. Sometimes I do that. If there's been a long time since a game and I want to refresh my memory, I'll go back and listen to one of our old episodes. Haven't done that with the Quad Cow episode. I would like to sometime. I really, really remember loving that game. And it's been a long damn time since Quadrilateral Cowboy. And we're back, baby. Blendo has a new joint out. And
I love it.
This is so good. So Shane, I don't remember if you were on that episode or not, but you did play Quadrilateral Cowboy, right?
I don't think I did. I really don't. Okay. But I have played a whole lot of immersive sims over the years, and this is a fantastic example of that. I did play 30 Flights of Loving, so I have some kind of experience with some of the things that this has in common with other Blendo games. But for me, the touchstones for this were really, particularly 2017's Prey, which we both played and really enjoyed, and the whole legacy of like Dishonored and BioShock and Deus Ex and all of the immersive sims. And this is definitely one of those, and in a really interesting and different way.
Yeah. I remember a couple of years ago, I forget the occasion, some studio closure or, one of the parade of disappointments that happens in the games industry, when a high profile immersive sim didn't do particularly well financially. Folks were really declaring death of this genre. And I don't think this is necessarily...
It's a genre that, because it's this weird offshoot from a huge genre, the first person shooter, it has had a weird evolution from like something that is kind of a niche offshoot of something popular to something that has a really big footprint in games as a whole, especially around the like early to mid 2000s. And then it has kind of struggled to maintain a consistent presence in like big AAA releases for a long, long time. And like, I can't think of a big trip. I guess the closest thing to it, maybe you would consider, what was that Time Looper game where you were kicking people off of every ledge? That's the closest thing to me in a while.
We don't get a ton of these, and it is always sort of exciting for people who enjoy this genre when we do get a new one. It's very possible that some of our listeners might not be super familiar with the immersive
sim genre. So if that's you, immersive sims are a genre that has been around for a lot longer than the name immersive sim, which I can't remember, was coined kind of as these things were waning in their popularity. But the core idea is these are games where they give the player a ton of different things to interact with and simulated systems to bump up against, interconnected simulated systems where you're kind of expecting emergent gameplay. And really heavily, they tend to lean into stealth as a genre. Like there's kind of an influence combat-wise from like early dungeon crawler type games where you play some of those. A lot of those were even first person and had a lot of systems because, hey, they're kind of an RPG. And there's an RPG element to a lot of these, but not in the way where you're like leveling up your character and more in the way like you're collecting weird items and exploring. And I think high points for a lot of people would probably be stuff like BioShock, which was like had a real emphasis on narrative storytelling, and that's what draws me to this genre, is that it often has a really cool way of telling a story in an interactive way. You know, like the narrative FPS kind of like you don't. Most of the FPS has kind of lost their narrative elements slowly into this genre, and then I don't know. There's some narrative in all of it, but the open-ended element of it, where you as the player are choosing how to engage with all these different overlapping systems, and like the non-linear way that you're able to like sneak around and choose how you solve the puzzles or problems, I should say, of the game. That's what I really like. But every time we talk about this genre, I bring up again how much I loved the Lady Boyle's Last Party level in Dishonored, which I think is one of the best video game levels of all time. And that was a very non-linear, open-ended, explorable space that had lots of different characters interacting with each other, kind of on their own timetable, managing their own like little business and pathways, and lots of like little dynamic NPC interactions, so that you had this like really real feeling of just truly messing around in a realistic world. And then as you do that, but it's also still very objective based. You're trying to figure out which of the masked ladies, I think, at this party are men. I forget who it was, but one of the three. There's people wearing a bunch of different similar masks, and you have to figure out which one is your assassination target, right? So the stealth element of these games is a big element of that immersive sim, and this game plays with stealth and but it's tonally very different. Most games
it is a comedy game
are
like
most
wild.
Stealth is a very serious genre, you know.
Yeah,
thief and stuff, and
here's the like thing. Here's the thing. I think that what's crazy about this is that like it brought to the surface for me that like a lot of games in this genre, things like Hitman, not exactly the same genre, but you know what I mean.
Hitman's pretty darn silly.
Yeah, Hitman is a great example of a game with a serious story about assassination that for everyone plays as a comedy game because it has crazy systems and just weird stuff ends up happening because of all of the interacting systems. And I think that's true for like everything that I remember happening to me in Dishonored is funny. Like it's just the way that is, because you know the getting found out, scrambling, trying to figure out a way to save a bad situation, produces a lot of really funny moments. And then this is a game that really leans into that aspect of it, and it's almost cartoonish. This is the only immersive sim that I've ever even considered playing in front of my kids. I have young kids, and I can play this one in front of them, and they thought it was very funny. Things like, we'll talk about all the stuff later, but like the pop off heads, saving the cats,
you can flush someone's head down a toilet. That's gonna be a hit with the kids. Obviously.
It's so they really thought it was cool.
Yeah.
So before we talk about all the things about this game, I do want to just also set a little bit of, we've just talked about the immersive sim genre. I also want to remind anybody or introduce maybe people to Blendo Games. I think one of the most interesting and in some ways important indie video game developers ever. And it mostly comes down to that Blendo, what they're most known for is a really, really short game that we did an episode on this show many years ago. But that had incredibly wide-ranging influence in the industry, which was 30 Flights of Loving. They've had other games. That was almost a sort of pseudo sequel to Gravity Bone, which came before that. They've had other games. We mentioned Quadrilateral Cowboy. They've had some space flight games that I have never played. But 30 Flights of Loving
pulls that in an interesting way. I didn't really think about it, but there's a huge emphasis on zero-G. In this
is the most comprehensive game they've made.
Yeah, this is maybe the most Blendo of their
Maybe so, yeah. But 30 Flights of Loving is almost like a Guy Ritchie crime story about a heist. But what was really innovative about it at the time was that it is mostly pretty linear. It kind of has hints at immersive siminess in its presentation, but not at all in its structure. So it doesn't have any of the like systems exactly here. But it has
first person, and you're doing a lot of like picking things up.
Yeah, but it has editing that is like film-like editing. It has a lot of smash cuts, which was something that was like, frankly, technically difficult back in the day. Blendo has always...
if you think about it, in order to quickly, instantly cut from one environment to another in a video game, you have to have no load time to go between those two different environments, or be able to load two environments at the same time and quickly toggle back and forth. It's the same reason why even today this trick, technically always works. They had that Ratchet and Clank where you would zap back and forth between two worlds, and that was like a big demo for the PS5, in terms of its technical capabilities. It's just hard to do. Portal
had Blendo's approach to this has always been
twice as hard.
Make innovative narrative and like interestingly edited, fascinating games, but using incredibly old tech. So like this game is made using like Intech 4, like a 12-year-old
I don't get it.
Game. It's like a 12-year-old game engine. This is a very old engine that's being used for this game, and it's just because that's what Brendan Chung likes and is used to and can do incredible things with. He's not moved to the new hotness with his, and he doesn't have to. The cats in this are made out of rectangles. Like, Minecraft is the most popular video game of all time. Nobody cares if the characters are rectangles. It's fine. And Brendan Chung is like, okay, we got it. The only character who's not a rectangle in this is the main character, Nina Pasadena. Who is like only slightly not a rectangle.
Well, she's got a very detailed head.
Sort of.
It's got a recognizable human head.
So these guys are Brendan Chung and Blendo Games has been doing important stuff for years. Quadrilateral Cowboy was an incredible game. It had a lot of immersive siminess to it. It had stealth, but it was actually more of a puzzle game than this. It had this whole the stealth and immersive sim stuff felt very much subordinate to the like puzzle game of it at the time.
Yeah, it was like a cyberpunk-y kind of thing where you were carrying around like a computer and you had to make sure you had room to put the computer on a table in order to
and it was a hacking game. Like you'd be breaking into places, you'd find devices that you needed to bypass or take control of,
definitely
or
did not
connect in interesting ways, and then you had to do a pretty involved hacking thing. One of the most amazing hacking interfaces of a game ever, which is to basically had a whole computer in there you had to use. So it had some immersive sim to it, but it was that wasn't exactly the focus. The like incredible hacking, like that side of it was really the focus. Here, it is all about being an immersive sim in the classic sense, and the story. Because story is very important in these games, is a future sci-fi world. It's a very funny future sci-fi world.
It's more of a retro-futuristic sci-fi
you're right.
world.
Sorry, because it takes place in the 90s.
Like the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's like supposed to be like 1992 or something like that. That's right. I'd forgotten. There's some places where you can go and look at, like, if you really want to get what the year is, you can look at like the like certification signs inside of elevators and things like that, and get like what year is it supposed to be right now. It's a futuristic sci-fi world of 1996 or something, where space is just chock full of spaceships, and they're for all sorts of pedestrian purposes. There's there's laundry barges in space, and there's drive-through fast food restaurants in space, and libraries and every other thing, all spaceships. But it seems like these ships are getting broken into by space pirates just absolutely constantly.
Well, that's the mystery of the game is who's funding these well-equipped space pirates?
Who are the numb bunch? this incredibly well-equipped set of space pirates. And the solution for a spaceship crew who wants to insure against space piracy is to get insurance that comes with an insurance cadet. Sorry, not cadet, commando. The word is insurance commando. Mm-hmm. And
a frozen insurance commando.
Yes. Yeah, and Nina Pasadena is such a commando. Her job is to be cryogenically frozen in a little ice cube box and stuck in a hidden corner on a spaceship for whoever knows how long, but it's almost always 2 weeks. You always get a readout that says you've been frozen for 2 weeks. And if the ship is broken into by space pirates, they automatically thaws out the commando, who pops out of a vent and takes out the space
with no
pirates.
Equipment, because you can't freeze a gun with a commando.
No,
it's
of course
just not tech. Cats have not come up with the technology for this.
Yeah. And there's the other aspect that we didn't mention yet, is that
all the crew, you're there to save the crew.
By cats.
Yes, the crew are all cats, and every cat has a different theme. It's like each cat is a member of a different high school clique / rock fandom / I don't know what. Like, one of them I think is into fishing. It's weird.
There's the D&D cat. There's the cat who has a skateboard. There's the cat with a magician's hat and outfit. Yep. All that stuff. Mm-hmm. And you have to...
I would say they're cute, but they're not cute because they're too square to be cute.
They're not even the meows are cute. They're just doing this incredibly meow.
Let me out of here, meow.
But they're
I
all
hate being trapped here, meow meow.
This is a future in which the world space is populated by human level intelligence, normal body sized cats, and they keep getting broken into by these human space pirates. And so you have to clear the space pirates out. And there is an overarching plot, but it is very much divided into these little levels. Each level is a specific spaceship, and Nina Pasadena has to pop out of her little ice cube tray and go pouring over this already taken over spaceship in order to equip herself, unlock the various systems of the spaceship. For example, like unlocking the doors, unlocking the vents, unlocking the airlocks, which requires various stuff we'll talk about, and ultimately sort of taking back control of this space from the space pirates in order to pull off their heads, because they have the most incredible piece of technology that I've ever seen in a video game.
Skull savers. Yes.
Oh my god.
When you manage to incapacitate a one of these goons, which by the way, the combat in this game is crazy. The most common way I would kill people would be to pounce on their back, ride them like a backpack, and then steer them into different pieces of electronics or things on the wall and bash them into it. And then once they're finally laying on the ground, you can pull their heads off. Or if they just die, their heads will just sort of float off and then slowly start to float, following a little purple trail back to some sort of pad that will regenerate them. So you can't just kill them. You have to deal with their heads. You can keep their heads in your inventory, taking up an inventory slot while they'll sort of mutter from your pockets. But the real solution is to get rid of the head. And there's myriad ways that you can get rid of the head. You can slam dunk it into a toilet and flush. You can put it in the trash. You can put it out the airlock. You can... I'm sure I'm missing many ways that you can get rid of the heads. And... if you look at the little pad on the ground where they would respawn, it just clearly says to you, you can't, alert, you can't damage this pad in any way that matters, And, So you really got to get the head out of there. My preferred method was to throw it into outer space. And that's the best thing about this game, is that all of the levels are spaceships. And so for a immersive sim, where the levels are usually like, a building or like some little part of town or something like that, these are super contained levels. And every level has kind of a pattern to it. Like there's the same gear on all the spaceships. So the good thing there is like you kind of know what to expect, and you learn like how to use the different items and systems together. And each ship is a little bit more complicated, a little bit bigger, a little bit better defended. So there's a nice progression to it. I don't know, I'm getting way off topic. I'm just talking about what I like about the level design, which is these ships are like so many different ways to get around, and like slowly as the security ramps up, like you really have to think about it and get creative. And I love that.
So I think we should probably talk through some of the game's systems, because being an immersive sim, these games are just absolutely dripping with different game systems, different things, different ways of interacting with stuff. And part of the fun of it is finding different ways that those kinds of things can intersect. The thing that the one that stood out to me as one of the most original things about this game is that it has this really clever zoom lens feature, where you can be looking anywhere in the world. So immersive sims are all about finding notes, right? This is like classic of the genre, is like, oh, I need to get into the library. There's a lock on the door. It has a code. Probably someone wrote that code down somewhere in the building, right? I'm going to go hunt through all of the emails on the computers, all of the notes in the drawers. Somebody is going to have written something down somewhere, right? This game is like, you are going to want to look at notes. Let's make that as fun and interesting and easy as possible. And so you have a zoom lens that you can hit. I think it's the left bumper on your controller. I mostly play this with the controller. It plays, in some ways, actually better with a mouse and keyboard, but I mostly played with the controller. And you can hit that, and it goes into a zoom lens mode where you can zoom in on things. But you don't have to do a whole bunch of tedious zooming in and out. If anything that you can...
Zoop! Sends you over
anything
there.
you can inspect gets a little highlight.
Even if you're
notes.
seeing a note, even if it's like the label on a soda machine that you're looking at like upside down from 1,000 yards away, it's going to zoom you right in, so it's nice and big and takes up your full screen.
Time pauses while you're reading the notes.
Yep.
Thank you. Not always the case for every feature in this game. This does have some times when there's like time pressure on things, but
I love so games like this, keeping track of that information is important. Being able to go back and think about it, not having to scribble in a notebook is something that I appreciate in a modern version of this genre. And they have a memory palace, which is it's like you go into the start menu and it's, memory palace, what is that? And then suddenly in space around you, every note you've ever seen just appears in a big arc in front of you, and you can like read each one, and if you want you can mark them as done. This is brilliant. I love it.
So good.
And it only really works because of how contained the levels are. Like, it's not going to include the like label that you read on the elevator shaft duct or something. It's going to only show you the notes that are like notes that include a code for something. And they are going to lock a lot of stuff up with codes, because each of it is different systems. Like, this sort of subgenre.
Before we get off of the zoom lens thing, the other aspect that I wanted to mention about that, though, is that the other thing you can do with the zoom lens is look at any item in the game, any tool that you pick up, and almost every single thing that you pick up has a label on it, and the label is like both an in-universe, like, I just picked up a can of deodorant, and it's like you can pick it up and look at the deodorant with,
and
your
often
zoom
kind
lens.
of funny. Yeah.
And yeah, they're all like kind of a funny
jokey.
product label, but they also give you some clue about how you're supposed to be able to, one way you're supposed to be able to use that in the game. So I forget the exact text on the deodorant, but it's like, definitely keep away from fire, very explosive, And it's like, oh, okay, I could use this to create a cloud of gas that I can explode with sparks or with a lighter or anything else that lights a fire. Great. And everything has these little labels on it. Even doors or utility plates on the wall. Everything you can zoom in and it will have a label that tells you what it is and gives you clues to how it can be used as part of the overall systems of the game. I absolutely love the zoom lens in this game. I think at first I was like, this seems fiddly. Why do I have a special modal to go into to read text on notes? But it's like, no, this is such a convenience feature, and also
it's a hint system. It's like a zoom lens.
It's a joke
scan
delivery
other
system.
stuff. You can scan enemies and stuff. It'll tell you their name and the list of things they're carrying. If you can only see their head, like looking down or something, you can tell what key card is hooked to their belt and stuff like that. All that's super useful. Yeah, I love that feature.
And so that plays into all the other systems of the game. There's the whole system of being able to manage the door, the like locked fuse boxes. Each of the spaceships has many ship systems, which the pirates then lock down. So there's vent access. Access to doors, access to windows, access to airlocks. There might have been others, but I think that's the main ones. And each of those, the pirates will disable them with a kind of a keypad lock, and you have to find codes. The codes are always 4 letters, and it's always animal names, which I thought was very funny and made it easy to remember them when you needed to.
There was a few things that weren't animal names, but yeah.
Oh yeah, there's things like stew or like that's clam.
Random, simple 4-letter words.
Yeah. But you'll have
and
to
you
go
key
through
them in
the
on
ship
like a
and
T9
unlock them.
kind of grid that was very retro.
Yeah, very retro. I'm trying to think. There's lots of different types of like items, obviously, that can be used in lots of different ways. You could pickpocket people, which is a necessity.
The pickpocketing was
like
way
this.
less effective than I wanted it to be. Like,
Oh, really? I did it all
like
the time.
They really seemed like they knew where I was right away every time I would pickpocket them, and then so I had to.
No, you had about a 3 or 4 second window. If you could get invisible, like you'd pickpocket it, and then they would immediately say, "Hey, did somebody take my whatever?" And they would start looking around, but they wouldn't immediately turn around 180. So, like, if you could get out of the room or something,
Get an
you
event
just
or
had
something,
to have an exit plan immediately.
But I would hide an event, and the frequently would happen to me is like they would set off a combat alert, and that would also trigger the vents to all be nuked, basically. And that was kind of an interesting thing, is the security systems in this ship. Like, once they know you're there, the systems around the combat alerts, there was a lot going on there. Like the walkie-talkies, the swordfish, all of that weird stuff. Like, so the alerts start this little timer, and the timer will repeat, and it really is like only a few seconds, basically. And when the timer runs up, that they send out what's called a swordfish, which is basically a flying drone with a knife sticking out the front end of it, and it will try to shoot itself directly into your center mass, and now it's a big, huge thing sticking out in front of you, right? Which then leads into the whole like healing system of this game, which is another complicated layer. But the other security thing is, like, if you can, when you get down one of them, often you can grab one of their walkie-talkies, and they're constantly talking to each other in the same room or to all of them over walkie-talkies. So you have to like get on the walkie-talkie and be like, "Oh, everything's okay here, boss," and to shut off the security alert and stop the security drones from spawning. And even if you do that, like once they've kind of, you might have killed, say, half of them, and the rest are still like unaware in some other room. Every so often, they will still like have everybody sound off on the radio. So you better have a walkie-talkie, which weirdly only have 3 charges. But you better have a walkie-talkie to be like, yeah, checking in from, Alpha, checking in, Beta, checking in, and then the rest of them are like, whoa, phew, nobody's dead, great. So that whole aspect of it was pretty. It's obviously it's funny, but systematically and all that, it's actually also really interesting because you're managing so many different little things in this game. Like how many of them have they killed? Do they know? The fact that, like you pointed, like the combination of different items to blow somebody up with deodorant or whatever, that's another great example. It's like funny, it's like systemic, it leads to like weird, goofy, emergent gameplay all together. Like it's a great package. I don't know, what else do we miss? Is there anything we would want to tell people about, maybe levels or about the story with Little Lion, or
I think
emails or anything like that? Do we want to reveal?
It has a good overall story. But there's a couple things about the presentation I want to talk about. One is that this has an absolutely stellar intro. From the moment you boot up the game through one of the latest late title cards and incredible like theme song Bond intro moments I can recall in the game. It starts you off as Nina. You get this like extended intro of like teaching you some systems by walking you through a spaceship in what's your first mission, during which it does some of their classic Blendo editing, jump cuts and smash cuts between sort of set piece moments, and it just is an amazing intro. Like incredible, teaches you a lot of fun, teaches you a lot of the systems of the game in a lot of really fun ways. For example, one of my favorite moments in this is that you're crawling around on top of some vents, and there's a room with a big fire coming out of a pipe on one of the walls. And a couple of the Numb Bunch guys are like walking towards the fire, and they're like, I'm trying to remember what they were saying, but they're like, they keep saying they're going to try to sneak past the fire, and they're like, I'm going to sneak past it. No, Amanda. And they get lit on fire. They die. Their heads float back over to the little cloning station. And then they keep trying to do it again. They keep trying to sneak past a fire. And so you, of course, learn that these guys are absolute fucking idiots, but you can stand there and watch them do this again and again and again. And there's like bespoke dialogue for probably like 8 repetitions of this. And this is the perfect way to make sure that you, the player, understand that when these guys
this weird respawn head,
when these guys die, their heads pop off, they float over to these purple pads on the ground, and they get a new body, and then they go off themselves again. I absolutely love that. I thought it was like so cool, and then it was very, very funny. And then they you continue through this whole intro ship. You get to learn a little bit about how to use the zoom lens, about how to inspect items, about some of the different overlapping systems. You get to learn about your auto defibrillator, Nina. Hero of the
this
of
is
the
a
game.
very nice feature. It's kind of generous from them to the player.
Oh, I mean, every game has lives, but this game is like, oh, you get 2 lives. Your second life is because you have an automatic defibrillator implanted on your heart. You die, you bleed out. You see. Well,
the generous thing is that not only does it bring you back to life, but it electrozaps people all around you.
Yes.
And if you can't figure out how to get that last bad guy, you know what? If he shoots you, you'll zap him, and you'll be able to bash his head a couple of times. So very
so
nice.
You get to learn the whole system, the whole deal, and then probably, I don't know, for me it might have been as much as like 45 minutes or an hour into the game. Then you get the title card, Skin Deep, and an entire animated Bond intro sequence is really the only thing that you can imagine them like the touch point here, where there's the Skin Deep theme plays, and lots of 3D models of cats spinning in fractal shapes and so on. So it's a very cinematic, interesting game. More fun to look at than, any interactive sims sometimes have some very good looking stuff in them, but like this is such a fun game to look at.
These games all have like vent crawling, right? But only in this game do you have a sneeze meter because of the dust in the vents, right?
There's a nose irritation system in this. You have to manage your sneeze meter. My lord,
so goofy. And the fact that like they have a system to keep you from doing a 180 when you're crawling through a vent. Like you can crawl forward, but that's it. Like if you start to turn, you're like stuck.
You have to wait for an intersection in the vent to have enough room to turn around. Very realistic, very simulationist.
You're barefoot the whole time, so broken glass, like if you break glass and it's laying on the floor, it could get stuck in your foot. You have to pull the broken glass out.
Very Die Hard. There's a lot of Die Hard in this, but the goofy parts of Die Hard.
Yeah, yippee-ki-yay. This is...
And then the overall story, like it alternates between, you go out on these missions. Nina gets frozen, gets put on a spaceship, has to free the cats on the spaceship. And then you go back to Nina's habitat, which is like her little spaceship room that she lives in, where she can read emails from the cats that she's rescued and reply back to them. And you get this whole like back and forth with some of the cats. And what's funny about it is you get a sense that like Nina knows every cat in space. She has a history with most of them. Knows them all by name.
They're all on a first name basis. They all have like something that they want her opinion on by email. Some of them she has more backstory with than others, which is where we get the wonderful character of Little Lion. Little Lion, and I think giving you like much of the backstory between Nina and Little Lion is a little bit of a spoiler because it was such a delight. But Little Lion is like an assassin that used to work with Nina, and that there's some buried business there that's going to get dug up in the story. There's a lot of these like story level. You alternate between kind of three kinds of spaces in this, right? You're on the ships, and each ship is unique, nicely designed, has its own gimmick. Like this one's a fast food restaurant, this one's a radio station. But when you're not on a mission, you're either in your habitat, which is one room and has a place to check your email and a place to sleep, and that's about it.
It has a breakout game that you can play. On her shelf if you take it down.
Milk crates that you can fill with cash for your various goals. And then sometimes you can like steer it around and go somewhere, and you'll have these little levels where you're like on a planet or visiting Little Lion's office. And those can be very, very funny because you're not sneaking around. You're just kind of exploring the space, but there's like a lot of story there. And the story here is silly, very funny. There's some like fun flashbacks that you hit eventually that start to put some explanation.
There's a late game like reveal. Not late, honestly. It's pretty. I don't know. First third, I guess. But there's a reveal in this plot that I was like very, very tickled by. Not going to reveal it here for story reasons, but there's some really funny surprises in the story of this game. So I don't know what else is there to say about this game. I thought this is a really accomplished immersive sim. There are better immersive sims
because I made it to the level where you're on the spaceship, but I don't think that's all that far.
I think I am. So this is about a 10-hour game, 11 maybe, and I have not finished it either. But I think I am probably 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through. It's a really solid one of these. I think if you're a big fan of immersive sims, you probably already have a favorite. Maybe it's Prey, maybe it's one of the Dishonoreds. I don't know, and I don't know if this is going to like knock that off of its perch for any like big immersive sim fan. But I think this is like a really solid one of these for fans of the genre. And if you're not a fan of immersive
that's
sim,
so often just like a diss. It's like, oh, this one's for fans of the genre.
This is not just for fans.
I'm a fan of these. This is really good. This is not just for fans.
It's a really good one.
And it's also this is like for a really broad audience. Like kids will like this. Parents playing with their kids. Weirdos will like this. Loners. Cool people, I don't know. You'll all like it.
Cats.
Yes.
It's really good. And I think it's got a more broad appeal than Quadrilateral Cowboy, which I thought was an incredible game. I really, really loved. But like I would tell literally anyone to play 30 Flights of Loving, and sometimes I will beg them to play 30 Flights of Loving and then like watch them play it because it's so important to me that I want to see you play this game. That's the kind of game it is for me. Mm-hmm. This is a really good one of these. And I would recommend this to people who have never played an immersive sim before. I would recommend this to people who have played every immersive sim.
If this is your first immersive sim, the rest of the genre is going to be very strange to you.
Maybe so. This is such a good game, though, man. So what else is there to say? This is out on Steam and also consoles. It was published by Annapurna, which is great. Annapurna
approval these days. Yep.
Yeah,
they're doing great.
They're not 100% hit rate with Annapurna anymore, but like I'm so glad that like that Brendan Chung got money to spend 7 dang years making this thing. That is a long time to spend making a game, but you could really like. Mm-hmm. It's a very complicated game. Like, I can't believe how in depth this thing is with systems and stuff. Mm-hmm. But like not in an overwhelming way. It's like every time you discover a new system, you're like, haha, yeah, new jokes. It's great.
Yeah. Every level is that I've experienced. I'm definitely going to finish this. I have not finished it yet. I think we'd seen enough of it to give it the glowing review that we're giving it right now. But there's a moment where you set up a camera and you use a zoom lens to zoom like 3 galaxies away.
Oh God, that bit was so good.
It's just so funny. It's just so silly. It's just like
camera. Better put that thing on a tripod.
Yeah. You set it. It sets itself up on a tripod. That's what I loved about it. Well, anyway, so I think people should play this game. You should check it out. You'll love it. It's even if it is your first one of these, it's not overwhelming because it's so good at explaining itself. Mm-hmm. Like the amount of text that explains things and the like nice, easy way that like every ship introduced some new element to the systems. They keep it simple at the start, and then by the time you get into some of the later missions, it's getting pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. You're going to be scrambling to like, I don't know, get back.
We didn't talk about the one aspect that really adds to that scramble that I really liked about this, that it didn't introduce right at first, is the extraction. So you're going into these ships, with full of pirates. Say there's like 6 pirates on the ship or something. You have to take the pirates out, or even you don't have to take the pirates out if you don't want to, but you have to get the keys to the boxes that the cats have been imprisoned in, unlock the cats, and then get off the ship and use a lamp gun to like signal,
like a signal lamp, click
to like SOS. Signal for a extraction pod, that like a rescue pod for the cats. You go onto the pod and you deposit the cats, and then your mission is not yet over. The pod takes off with the cats, usually leaving you with some extra goodies. The pod has some like guns or a grenade or something in it. I think it's random, and then you have to go back onto the ship. And another wave of pirate reinforcements will arrive. They'll breach the airlock and show up. and you have one of two ways to finish the mission. You either have to take out all of the pirates, any that are remaining from before, if any, plus the ones that just arrived, who are coming in guns blazing. Or, if you prefer, you can find a way to figure out which of those pirates has the keys to the ship they arrived in, and somehow steal the keys and leave on their own ship, which is such a fun thing to do, especially when they're like, they're coming after you. They're like, there's pirates at your back. You've got the key. You just barely make it to the airlock, and boom, Nina Pasadena escaped on the ship. I loved it. And that's great. If I could manage it, I preferred to steal the ship and escape rather than take out all the pirates every time, because it was both a little easier in some cases and more fun. Very often by that point, I've like depleted a lot of my resources. Don't have enough banana peels to take out all of the guards anymore.
Banana peels.
But
one of the best items in the game is tripping them on a banana peel.
Of course it is. This is that kind of game. It's the kind of game where having somebody trip on a banana peel is absolutely the best way to take them out. So anyway, this game is on a lot of platforms. In fact, I should check which. I believe it's on PC on Steam, as well as on... nope, none of these tabs I have open tell me which platforms it's on, but I believe it's on consoles as well. I'll leave that as an exercise for the listeners.
Plays great on the Steam Deck.
Yes, that's true. I played a good bit of this on Steam Deck, and that was great. Plays great with a controller. They have pretty good... I think it's actually... I may have said this already. I think it probably would be slightly better with a keyboard and mouse. Certain little elements of it, even little stuff like the menus for choosing save games, were a little annoying to do with a controller. But the meat and potatoes of the game works great on a controller. So, play this on whatever. I think you'll have a great time. And I think it was $20.
Yeah, it was $20. $19.99.
God, what a bargain, man!
Worth every penny. I am gonna keep playing this one a lot. I actually don't think I made as much progress as I thought. I'm trying to look at a list of the levels, and I'm pretty sure that I made it about halfway, which is where you get to the ship that is a radio station. That's as far as I made.
Oh,
so this game might uncover hidden depths to me that I didn't realize, but it's already deep as heck.
Yeah. I've already put, I don't have my Steam clock in front of me, but I've definitely put about 7 or 8 hours into it at this point. And I thought I was a little farther than halfway, but maybe there is more that anyway, I'm still having a great time with it. I'm definitely going to be spending some more time on this. We've got a couple minutes left. Shane, do you have any, what's making us happy this week?
I am going to use this as a chance to drag something out of you, which is one thing that's making me happy this week is you told me you read Assassin's Apprentice.
After, what is it now, like 30 years of being bugged about it?
I read that book in high school, and I am just about to be on the last book in the Realms of the Elderling series, which is like 18 books. So, it might take me a while to get the motivation to read the very last one. Because, saying goodbye is always hard. But I want to know, what do you think about the first book, Assassin's Apprentice?
I picked it up mostly because I was looking for an audio book, and had a copy of that available. And Shane has been telling me about this series in one form or another for many years. This was one of those things.
It was a very formative book for me personally.
Yeah, and we've had very overlapping tastes in books, and it honestly, thinking back on it, always kind of felt a little odd that I never really read those because you were so into them, and I read all the books that you told me to read, and you read all the books I told you to read, except this one for some reason. I don't know why.
I think as a teenager, to be clear, I think I read the first 6, maybe 7 books in the series, and I've read most of the rest of them now, many years later.
I'd say that nothing about it's completely blowing me away, but I think it has great characters. I think that's what really makes it makes it work. It's an interesting series, or I've only read.
What do you think of Fitz as a character so far?
I mean,
as your main character,
he's.
So you're in Assassin's Apprentice. He starts off as a little kid.
Yeah,
basically, he's Nameless the dog boy.
Mm-hmm. He's like 6 years old at the beginning of the book. He doesn't remember his mom. Mm-hmm. He is the bastard son of a beloved prince. But
Prince
the scandal,
Chivalry.
yes, Prince Chivalry.
Hence his name was Fitz Chivalry, is the son of chivalry.
So he doesn't get that name until I think it was in book 2, or might have been the very end of book 1. He's just a boy, or the bastard, or occasionally Fitz, but Fitz Chivalry it comes later. So he's characters wise, Fitz is okay. He's interesting enough, but the book has. I think what really sells it is that the first book is it's almost like an extended training montage. It's 6-year-old kid taken in by treated with total disdain and ambivalence by his family, because he is the the bastard son of this popular prince, and also the reason that prince bows out of the line of succession, abdicates the throne, causing a bunch of political problems, and so the only role for him in this royal family, is to basically
being a bastard is a big deal in this.
It's a big deal
series. It means that you're disdained quite a bit.
And so his only at first he's just helps with the horses and whatever, but eventually he's, as the title implies,
he's taken into the stables where another one of the great characters, Burrich, the who's the kind of stable master, takes him in and just kind of keeps him in the stables. What are you going to do with the bastard? He's dropped off in the stables.
Little boy, of course. I know how to take care of dogs. So, but yeah, what's it's just a extended, almost Dickensian, let me tell you about my education, Great Expectations novel kind of vibes.
And it's the setup of this character, the fact that he is kind of on the fringes of the royalty, but is raised by the stable master. He's really just sort of a very martial male figure. And you've also there's magic here too. Would you say it's not super high magic?
No, it's all mental magic. It's all telepathy and things like that. So he's marked by, he has telepathy with beasts, which is a shameful thing.
Yeah, that's the wit.
Yes, and then but he also
the hereditary magic of the Farseers, which is the royal family, is the skill, and that's kind of mental telepathy and in many different forms, right? And you can, but what is kind of interesting about that aspect of the magic in this book is that mental telepathy kind of magic, the skill, is addictive and very destructive to the people that use it. And so I don't know how much that has played into the story so far, but that's a big part of it. You've got the prince that is the younger brother of the one who abdicated and then died, is Verity, and Verity is pretty good with the skill, and Fitz starts to learn a lot from him about it from him. Who else are my favorite characters are Chade. I love Chade.
Yeah, so that was what I was getting at. Is the thing that kept me coming back to the book was, it's very interesting what's not to like about somebody studying to be an assassin, learning poisons, learning ways to kill a man quietly, those sorts of things. But also while having a bunch of scruples about that as a calling. It's a pretty good book. I enjoyed it, and I'm enjoying the second one. It's like very late in that first book when it starts to suddenly have like plot, you know what I mean? Because like the first 3/4 of the book are just like, you know, it's a training montage. It's like, let's set up the world,
There's a lot of characters to introduce. Setting up the world of
but like,
Keep.
it is carried by the characters. It's pretty good, good side characters. I like Patience a lot.
Yes, I love Patience. Yeah, Lady Patience. That's true, and I think the my favorite character, who I think is introduced very close to the end of the first book, is Ketrican. Ketrican is great.
Yeah, she's cool.
She's the they're trying to get a queen for the heir Verity, and she's the queen of a nearby kingdom, and a really cool. I love the world of the kind of mountain kingdom that you see. This is a series that plays really with tropes. Like, there are the characters in this, like the royal bastard, the beautiful mountain princess, the succession struggles between the princes, the old king who was very sick and decrepit, and the shadowy spy master. Like, these are all big, broad tropes. And the quests that a lot of these characters end up on are also big, tropey quests. But there's something about the depth of the characters, and what Robin Hobb is really amazing at is creating really emotional scenes between the characters. Like, I'm not in it for like the plot moving along super fast. I'm in it for, you know, the scene where the main character has been poisoned and spends 3 weeks recovering, and is, you know, gets to have a heart-to-heart with some noble about their ideals. Like, these are great scenes. Or when the main character who's, you know, on the outside and despised finds out that actually there are people in his life who really do care about him, and they express it in a way that's really meaningful. These are the kinds of scenes that I think are really great in these books. And you know, if you love tropes, then you're really gonna like the overall Realms of the Elderlings books are broken up into a bunch of different sub-series, right? So there's 3 books that are about Fitz. You know, you're on the second one. And then you get 3 books that are about pirates, and those rule. Like traders on magic ships and stuff. And it kind of bounces around. Like, she would kind of do a few books about Fitz from his point of view. Those are kind of first-person POV. And then stuff elsewhere in the world, like wider world. And those books both often are like full of a little bit more excitement. They're really cool and have a lot more of the, you know, bigger, broader world building. Eventually, it all kind of expands and comes together a little bit. But that second trilogy, which is the Live Ship Traders books, those are they're probably better than the first trilogy, even though the first trilogy is more dear to my heart. But great series. I'm glad you're reading them. You know, I love to say I told you so, and now you're probably going to stop reading them because I said so. But
yeah,
I hope you enjoy the rest.
Having read it, like, or gone through the audiobook, I had like flashes where it's like, I'm pretty sure that back in high school I like leafed through this, or like, you know, started it and never finished it, because there were like bits of like, oh yeah, I remember this. But I am enjoying it more now, I think, than I did then. So I think I was more of a sci-fi guy back then. I think you were more into fantasy, and that's changed for me. I read a lot more fantasy than sci-fi these days.
Yeah. Well, since we're on the fantasy kick, I'll make this brief, but I read the second book that I have read from Christopher Buehlman. I read a little while ago The Black Tongue Thief, and I think I told you and people on the podcast about it. Loved it.
That's queued up on my list as well.
And I read the prequel to that, which is called The Daughter's War, and that book really kicked ass. The Black Tongue Thief is really it's got this kind of clever quippy thief main character who's got a great voice and is really fun. But one of the things I really liked about that book was just how scary the goblins were. And this world is. This second book is a much more is a flashback to a much more heavily goblin infested version of this world, where you're getting to the end of a series of really hopeless depopulating wars against this absolutely maniacal enemy that wants to eat every human. And it's called the Daughter's War because it comes after there were some Knights' Wars, and then there was the Threshers' War, where they sent off, they didn't have any knights left, so they sent the farmers, and now it's the Daughters' War, where they've run out of sons to send, and they're sending anybody who can walk into war, and against just the most awful shit you can imagine. But it's still a really fantastic book. It takes one of these characters from the first book, who was this war veteran, and it kind of gives her war story. It's a lot more grimdark, but it's still got a really clever writing to it. It's the prose that really makes these. So yeah, really enjoyed it. So another recommendation.
Awesome. Well, I think we'll leave it here. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Short Game.
And for Fantasy Corner here in the back half.
You can find us on the internet at shortgame.fm. That's the website with all the links and buttons to find all the things that The Short Game does. We've got a Patreon, which is how you can support the show. It's also how you can join our Discord community, which is the number one way to reach us, but also just a great place to hang and talk about the games that we're playing, books that we're enjoying, and all the other things that are coming up in our lives. If you want to keep up with the show, that's the best way to do it. We're also on some social platforms, so find all that at shortgame.fm. I'm Reagan Kelly.
I'm Shane Kelly.
And thanks once again for joining us on this episode of The Short Game.